We can really be a world leader and export our energy, and that's good for Scotland's economy and it's good for Scotland's people.
So we've got a £20 billion investment programme that's all about unlocking the north of Scotland's renewable potential.
Childhood leukemia. What are we supposed to do? 16 years of being subject to this. Is it going to cause problems for in later life?
The feeling of having nature desecrated is so powerful. There's nothing more powerful than seeing something you love being destroyed.
Scotland. Once rich in oil and gas, we're now looking at another natural resource to secure our future. Wind. And as Scotland looks to become net zero by 2045, we will need renewable energy more than ever before. Demand on our electricity network is expected to increase by more than 70% in the next 25 years. To harness that need, something new is coming. Something big. But at what cost? A new electricity network will see 400 kilovolt overhead power lines installed across Scotland. From Spittal in the north of the country, down through Murray and Aberdeenshire, and stopping in Teeling in Angus. The average height of a two-storey house is around 6 metres. A 30-year-old deciduous tree could be around 20 metres. The standard height of a pylon on our current network is 38 metres. On the new network, it'll be 57, and the tallest on the network will tower at around 70 metres high. The proposals from SSEN have been put in place to reach that ambitious government target. But they have sparked anger from the communities in the corridor of these pylons, who fear the mass industrialisation of Scotland's countryside.
Behind us over there is a gas pipeline. It takes the gas from the North Sea right down to England. It's a great big thing, 36 inches in diameter, and they buried it and planted on top of it. You cannot see it. Now, this is that dirty, old, hydrocarbon, filthy energy we're trying to get rid of. Instead, we're going to use nice, renewable, green electricity. What do we do with it? We stick it on a huge, great pylon with enormous, great wires, humming and buzzing when it rains, damaging the landscape. It just doesn't make sense.
For Tony Davidson, who owns an art gallery near Bewley that sits right at the heart of this planned power corridor, the idea of the beauty of the local landscape being destroyed is too much.
The feeling of having nature desecrated in this sort of way is so powerful. There's nothing more powerful than seeing something you love being destroyed. People think of pylons being towers, but actually they're big cables, and they're big fat cables, and they cut through the sky like a fence divides a field. It's very powerful when your sky is suddenly taken away from you.
SSEN say they've balanced a number of different factors to ensure the planned route for these pylons is the best way forward for Scotland.
So this £20 billion investment programme is made up of 11 major projects, 6 onshore, 5 offshore. Roughly a third of that is on overhead lines. And as a general rule of thumb, you would think about 5 to 10 times the cost for undergrounding it, so people can do the math. There are real constraints in when you can underground in the north of Scotland. With rocky terrain, hillsides is difficult, and there are all these operational issues that we can't get round.
We were once at the forefront of electrical innovation. It was here that the first electricity pylon was constructed, almost 100 years ago. But the lattice design has barely changed since then. Our current network hasn't seen a significant upgrade since the 1950s, and there are fears Scotland could be left behind. Some say there is a better way. They're looking elsewhere, where countries like Germany and America are putting these high voltage lines offshore or underground using a direct current, rather than the alternating current being used here. It is significantly more expensive. SSEN say it's not a tried and tested method, and it's just not viable in the timescale needed. Campaigners disagree.
This should never have gone along the route of an overhead pylons and overhead lines. It should be high voltage DC using modern technology with a big DC highway going right down the coast. It's what they're using right across the Western Europe. It's the modern technology. These pylons are going to be technologically obsolete within my lifetime. They'll still be there in my grandchildren's lifetime.
These skyscrapers of the countryside will dominate our landscape. But communities have been given assurances they'll be installed sensitively.
We work to rule of thumb where we ensure that none of this infrastructure is within 170 metres of any homes or businesses.
In Jamoke, they're concerned about the primary school and the lines going over the top of that. Will they be going over the primary school?
We're still consulting on that part of the project, but we've given a categorical commitment that the lines will not go within at least 250 metres of that primary school.
The UK government say there are a number of studies that show a link between living next to high voltage power lines and developing childhood leukemia. Figures suggest that between 2 to 5 cases out of 500 every year could be caused by electromagnetic fields. But the government also say that there isn't enough evidence to draw a strong conclusion between the two.
Dr. Jennifer Sudder lives in the planned corridor. She's concerned that more up-to-date research is painting a worrying picture.
In the current scientific literature, there's a 50% increased risk of cancer for those living long-term in close proximity to high voltage overhead lines. So to desecrate our environment to bring us green energy does just not make sense. To quote a 2019 paper, because it's important that we look at up-to-date research, the risks for cancer from electromagnetic fields are not inconsistent nor inconclusive. Adults, not just children, are at risk. The risk of exposure long term to electromagnetic fields increases our risks with strong evidence for leukemias and cancer, especially breast and brain.
SSEN say any new research on the safety of their infrastructure is constantly reviewed by the UK Health Security Agency to ensure the 400 kilovolt network is safe. But Sheena Hickey and Chris Webster, who live beside a planned substation in the Mearns, still fear how their daughter's health may be impacted.
Childhood leukemia is a big thing with the pylons. There is a lot of research saying it can and does cause it. So it's just, we've got a 5-year-old who's going to be near these pylons for the next 16, 17 years of our life possibly. What are we supposed to do? 16 years of being subject to this, is it going to cause problems for our later life?
But it's not just the health concerns that worry them.
We could lose about 50% of the value of our house, which would put us into negative equity, which means when we come to remortgage, we would struggle to get a mortgage, we'd be on higher interest rates because of that. The thought of trying to put money into the house and knowing that it won't be worth what we've paid for it, and we feel stuck, we feel very isolated in it, and we don't know what to do.
Despite many campaigners' concerns over the reduction in value of their properties, SSEN say there's no evidence to support that.
We haven't seen any wider evidence that there is a substantial impact on house prices. But what I would say is 2 things. Firstly, we want to be good neighbours and we're listening. And secondly, as part of the government's consultation on community benefit, they consulted on benefit and money off bills for people that are particularly close to this infrastructure.
The majority of the planned overhead line is going through agricultural land. Jonathan's family have been farming here near Dramoke for 3 decades.
We're always trying to improve things for the next generation and to make things simpler and easier. As farmers, you're always trying to improve the wildlife in the area for ourselves and for others. And for the pylons to come through, it's just reversing what we are doing. I mean, they're going to scar the landscape.
Jonathan and his wife Lynn have just finished building their dream home, a sanctuary to raise their young son, Ewan.
Yeah, it definitely makes me feel angry because I personally wouldn't want to go out and buy a home or a house that's going either a pylon line right next to you or through your garden or over the top of your head, really. So it has to decrease the value of your property.
Since 2022, Scotland has generated more than 100% of its electricity need from renewables. But with demand for electricity constantly increasing, more wind farm proposals than ever before are on the horizon.
Scotland already is in a position of being an exporter of electricity, so it's actually really important to the whole of the UK that Scotland continues to generate more energy than we already do. But we are actually in a position where we've got so many natural resources, plus the talent of the people working in the existing energy industries, that we can really be a world leader and export our energy. And that's good for Scotland's economy and it's good for Scotland's people.
During construction, thousands of jobs could be created and be a massive boost to Scotland's economy.
Yeah, absolutely gobsmacked at the scale.
Dan Bailey lives near Strathpeffer. He isn't against the proposals, but wants to work with SSEN to find the right way forward.
We're at the sharp end of the transition that Britain is making to net zero. We're being expected to take a big hit here to our quality of life. It's clearly not good enough in the 21st century to have communities like ours hugely affected by such massive infrastructure without really any meaningful say over how that infrastructure is delivered on the ground.
SSEN have had several rounds of consultation. It's something they have a statutory obligation to do and say they are listening. But the people affected say the consultation hasn't gone far enough.
I speak to a lot of these companies all the time, and it is my message to them, it is in your interests to engage early and thoroughly and sympathetically with communities, or else your projects might not come to fruition. We have got communities that rightly don't want them right next to settlements as well. So they have to maybe look at a proportionate amount of undergrounding in places where it would have a visual impact to people that are living nearby to it. And I think that's something that they are absolutely open to.
Scotland stands at a pivotal moment in its history, where the winds of change bring both promise and challenges.
If we don't make this change, we're not really leaving a legacy of clean energy for future generations.
We're just a little homestead here fighting against the man, so what can we do?
If you destroy the land, we destroy ourselves. We are the landscape. You can't destroy it like that.
Scotland hopes to become a world leader in exporting wind power, but it will come at a cost. Communities worry they will be the unintended casualties and fear this is only the start of the mass industrialisation of Scotland's countryside.